beginning man is part of this cycle of life, forming a passive partnership.
You see, the great prophecies of the Bible bring present-day events into focus.
Operated by missionary pilots, this plane carries personnel and supplies.
Hello, I'm Alan Lindsay and welcome to South Pacific Classics. It's great to be with you. In this show, we'll travel to one of the most remote islands on Earth, halfway between New Zealand and Peru, the hiding place of the mutineers in the 18th century. I'm speaking, of course, of Pitcairn Island. Please relax and enjoy Miracle on Pitcairn.
In South Pacific waters, in 1789, Fletcher Christian led a mutinous crew against Captain William Bligh, who was trained under the famous navigator Captain Cook, seized His Majesty's ship, Bounty, and all her stores. The hated Bligh and 18 loyal men were set adrift in a small boat with little water and provisions. Thus was perpetrated the most famous mutiny of all time. With Captain Bligh out of the way, the mutineers returned to Tahiti. Here, on beautiful Tahiti, they took wives from among the island women, and 16 of the English sailors elected to remain. But Fletcher Christian had other plans. Fearing capture and death at the yardarms, he took 8 of the mutineers together with their wives and 9 other Polynesian men and women, and set sail in search of a more remote paradise. In 1790, the Bounty stood off Pitcairn Island, 2 square miles of uninhabited volcanic rock, 1,000 miles from Tahiti, and as lonely a spot as could be found on Earth. Stripping the Bounty of all valuables, they committed her to flames. With mixed emotions, that motley crew watched their only means of escape burn to the waterline and sink in the turbulent waters of what is now known as Bounty Bay. Now, nearly 200 years after the Bounty mutineers landed their ill-gotten possessions on this dangerous shore, their hardy descendants continue to live in lonely exile. The Pitcairners' village, Adamstown, is perched high above the island's rocky cliffs. But the peaceful solitude of this tiny island in the vast Pacific follows a story of vice, tragedy, and murder unbelievable in its horror. Hidden from the sea, the first settlers built rough huts in a jungle-filled valley, and for a year or two, the mixed community lived in comparative peace. Then one day, while gathering birds' eggs on these precipitous cliffs, John Williams' wife slipped and fell to her death on the rocks below. But Williams had no intention of remaining wifeless. Soon he had stolen the spouse of one of the Polynesians, touching off bitter hatreds and a massacre that took the lives of many. In a short space of time, but one man remained of the 15 who had come on the Bounty. He was John Adams. Now a man old before his time, he searched the horizon for passing ships, half in fear, half in hope, but they never came. Torn with remorse and despair, Adams thought of the women left to his care and of the children, some of them his own, growing up like savages. Then he remembered the Bounty Bible, hidden in an old sea chest. He found it and stumbled haltingly through the salt-stained pages. The toughened murderer realized that here lay the only hope for the remnant of the colony. Adams had had a little schooling, and now as he retaught himself to read, he became a changed man. Such was the power of the book. His one desire was to atone for the acts which had helped bring the Pitcairn community to an almost hopeless state. Using the Bounty Bible as his textbook, he held daily classes, teaching the Tahitian women and the children of the mutineers to read and write, and to love the virtues of the Christian life. And what a change that book made. In place of fear, there was trust. The terrors of the early years were remembered only as a nightmare in the bright dawn of a new day. Then in 1809, after nearly 20 years, the American ship Topaz called at supposedly uninhabited Pitcairn. Captain Mayhew Folger was surprised to find a peaceful, God-fearing community here, living under the patriarchal rule of John Adams. The reformed mutineer was not taken to trial, but was allowed to end his days with his little flock, which under God he had civilized. He ended his days on the island he had learned to love. When Fletcher Christian and his fellow fugitives landed at Bounty Bay and beat a trail to the top of the cliff, they had found the only reasonable landing place on rugged Pitcairn. Now, nearly 2 centuries later, the old landing place is still in use, and from the boat sheds to Adamstown, you follow Fletcher Christian's trail. Today, the hardy islanders fight the sea their forefathers fought, the sea that is both their prison and their link with the outside world. It lashes and crumbles their rocky shores, and frequent storms smash their wooden landing stage. Hard physical labor is the Pitcairners' lot, whether it be hauling logs to repair the skidway or battling the waves in their 38-foot whale boats. With ages ranging from 18 to 80, these men are rugged. They have to be. They build their own longboats and take them into seas that would make all but the stoutest hearts quail. An overseas ship could arrive at midnight or in foul weather, and it's a call to the oars for an hour or two's contact with civilization. Descended from the Bounty mutineers and their Polynesian wives, these muscular he-men surely have a double inheritance in boats and the sea. They have an inheritance, too, in this verdant island with its rocky escarpments and deep ravines. But even here may be found the machines and electronics of the 20th century. Pitcairn's radio station stands 900 feet above the sea on a windswept ridge. Although it has a diesel-electric plant, a wind-driven generator helps keep batteries charged and saves on fuel. Here Tom Christian is on duty. This morning, Tom receives a radio telegram from the South Pacific office in Fiji, asking for a report on Pitcairn's new post office. Money is of little use on Pitcairn, for there is no corner store where you may spend a dime or two, but at the village square there is a little wooden post office. Pitcairn's colorful postage stamps are known to collectors around the world. With a population of about 100 persons, this must be the smallest country in the world to issue its own stamps. The little 10 by 10 post office has surely seen better days. And what's this talk about a new building? That's what interests Fiji, and it's why they sent the telegram now being delivered to Postmaster Oscar Clark. Please report progress, new post office. It seems that the new post office is something of a joke around here, but joke or not, Adamstown does appear to need a new post office. Over the years, termites and dry rot have done their worst. The tropics are not kind to wooden buildings, and a new building has been started. But there's just one problem. Lumber supplies have run out, and work has been halted. On this small island, all building materials have to be imported. It's merely a matter of waiting for a ship. Several months, who knows? Local timber suitable for building construction was soon cut out of these wooded glades by the early settlers. Now only firewood remains. But there's plenty of that. To the inhabitants of Pitcairn, life is a steady round of doing the things that mean survival, and cutting firewood is one of them. The island's only means of transport, a sturdy wheelbarrow of local design, is used to wheel the firewood to the village. Tom's mother, Flora, bakes in an old stone oven that dates back to the early days. A roaring fire is used to preheat the stone slabs before the food is put in. According to husband Fred, this oven bakes the best bread in the world. Best on Pitcairn anyway. Fred Christian, over 80, has one of the oldest houses on the island. Built right where his great-great-grandpappy, Fletcher Christian, built his first shack so long ago. Fred's shoeless feet have tramped the trails first blazed by the mutineers themselves. Trails stained with blood. But now there is peace on the island, and peace in Fred's heart. Lily Warren could tell some stories too. Come hail, come hurricane. For more than 50 years, she was the island's nurse and midwife. For these selfless services, she was honored by Queen Elizabeth II with the Order of the British Empire. At 85, Lily is Pitcairn's oldest inhabitant. These are the old faces, weathered by the passing of many summers, but still battling on. Their homes are old too, in need of a coat of paint maybe, but there's little money for fancy trimmings here. However, there are no mortgages falling due, no monthly rents to be paid, no income tax department. There are no traffic problems, no overworked police force, no overflowing penitentiaries. But you can make a call on the telephone. It may be an early model, but it still works, and most homes are connected to this party line system. Besides a refrigerator, daughter Thelma has a modern food mixer, all run from diesel-driven home lighting plants. While some island housewives have these newfangled washing machines, others stick to the old and tried method of beating the clothes with a wooden pallet. High on the hillside, in the shadow of 1,000-foot Gannett Ridge, women are picking wild beans. Nature is lavish here, and the rich volcanic soil produces an almost endless variety of food, some needing little or no cultivation. Several generations have worked this soil without artificial fertilizers, and it still crops well. Sweet potatoes are a staple item. Tropical fruits grow in abundance here. Giant papayas of delicious flavor. What boy wouldn't enjoy collecting them? Bathed by the southern sun, citrus fruits grow to perfection. Grapefruit, oranges, and mandarins, acclaimed as the sweetest in the world. Local government on Pitcairn consists of an island council which operates under guidance from Fiji. John Christian is currently chief magistrate, highest position on the island. Then there's cheerful Ben Christian, island secretary, and in the cap, Vernon Young, chief of police. He's never made an arrest. The policeman with the easiest job in the world, for all these people are sincere Christians. All work of a public nature is carried out equally by the able-bodied men of the community. Everybody pitches in on such jobs as handling cargo at the landing. A ship has brought a consignment of oil from Panama, fuel for the island's generators. Electricity is one of the few luxuries that the Pitcairners enjoy. The cargo is discharged into the longboats a mile or so offshore, as there is no safe anchorage for ships. Now it must be unloaded at Bounty Bay. It's back-breaking work. Adamstown is about 300 feet above sea level, and much of the cargo from the landing is hauled to the cliff edge by aerial cableway powered by diesel winch. But once again, manpower is needed as barrels of fuel are rolled to respective owners' engine rooms. It's a matter of you help me and I'll help you. Meanwhile, as they rest from heavy labor, the Pitcairners are not idle. They spend every spare moment carving and whittling wooden curios to sell to passengers on passing ships. There are fancy flying fish, turtles, and birds, all cunningly and skillfully carved. These quaint curios have found their way to almost as many countries as have the Pitcairn stamps. As they carve, they scan the horizon for passing ships and think of the trade that will mean a little money in their pockets. The women folk have their handcrafts too. Colorful baskets, fans, and sunbonnets, woven from the dried leaf of the indigenous pandanus palm. Their fingers are always busy, for a few baskets sold can mean a new dress maybe, or some imported luxury for their homes. Their children have to be clothed and school uniforms made. A modern, well-equipped school with a teacher from New Zealand cares for the education of the rising generation. Their daily ration of milk comes from cans. There are no cows on tiny Pitcairn. These are bright, healthy youngsters, as full of fun as children anywhere in the world. They learn arithmetic and spelling and wish they were down swimming in the bay. And they learn of far-off places most of them will never see. Over on the seat above Bounty Bay, Parkin Christian and other old-timers are reminiscing about the good old days when the sailing ships called, when there was no radio, and it could take 18 months to get an answer to a letter. They can remember when John Tay, an American missionary, landed on Pitcairn with new ideas about the observance of the seventh-day Sabbath. These were stirring times. The old Bounty Bible, still in use on the island, had given them a deep and abiding faith, and John Tay found the people eagerly waiting further instruction from the good book. Soon the whole population had accepted the Bible Sabbath and other ideals presented, and joined the worldwide community of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Following Tay's visit, a fine schooner was built and fitted up as a missionary ship and named the Pitcairn. This Adventist ship made many trips to the South Seas in those days when Christian missions were being established in these areas. For nearly 8 decades, the Pitcairn bell has called the people to worship. Their new way of life, free from the use of tobacco and alcohol, has brought peace and happiness to the sons of the mutineers. Then join our happy crew. We're bound for Canaan shore. The captain says there's room for you and room for millions more. There is no resident physician on Pitcairn, but a trained nurse is usually in attendance. Here, Mrs. W.G. Ferris, wife of the church pastor, is on duty in the medical clinic. Surgeons of passing ships, contacted by radio, have often given help in case of emergency. Pitcairn is, however, self-sufficient in the dental field. Elwyn Christian did a short course in New Zealand, and besides fillings and extractions, he can make a snappy set of dentures. This young fellow obviously has his own teeth as he chews sugarcane. But it takes steel teeth to scrape coconut for little Miss Brown's pussycat, Lucky Cat. At last, a ship is approaching. A ship with mail and cargo for this lonely island. Tom contacts her through the radio telephone and is notified of expected time of arrival. He phones the news through to the village. Radley rings the bell. 5 rings. A ship is coming. Now the village goes into action. Long before the expected ship is visible on the horizon, the people begin to arrive at the launching place, carrying baskets of trade goods and souvenirs. Not everybody trades on every ship. If your name is not down for this ship, you get to trade on the next one. That's how it goes. All is excitement as the longboats are launched. Shouted orders and quick repartee accompany the boats as they go slithering into the bay. Now they're quickly loaded with baskets of curios and fruits. Seasoned crewmen take their places at the oars and pull the boats out through the foaming surf. They seem to have to wait for a temporary lull in the waves. Yes, sometimes the sea is kind, but usually it's dangerous. Boats have been capsized just getting out of Bounty Bay. A diesel-powered launch is the last to leave the harbor and fight its way to the open sea. It will cast a line and tow the others out to the ship. Not till then will the men pull in the oars. Pitcairn's rugged coastline and lack of harbor facilities make an offshore meeting a necessity. So year after year, the danger, the daring, and the adventure of the launching and the trip to the ship are just part of the privilege of rubbing shoulders with the outside world. Baskets hanging on arms, they scramble up the swaying rope ladder. Passengers show a keen interest in the Pitcairn people and their curios, and the sale of these handcrafts is the main source of income. It gives them money for toothpaste, for offerings, or even a transistor radio. Old Fred loves to visit the ships. Are you really descended from Fletcher Christian? Is a query that he has answered many times. All is a scene of busy activity as long-awaited supplies are loaded into the island boats. Nobody is in a hurry here. After all, the passengers must have a little time for trading and talking with the descendants of the mutineers. At last the cargo is discharged. The big ship goes on its way, and the heavily laden longboats return to the island, accompanied by the singing of the Pitcairner. The excitement is over, but the toil of hauling these 7-ton boats out of the bay and into the shelter of the sheds requires block and tackle and all available manpower, and the women lend their weight to the ropes. Because of lack of shelter and the heavy seas which pound Bounty Bay, the boats are never left in the harbor overnight. 1,000 times, 2,000 times, the boats have been launched, and as many times backs have bent to the task of bringing them back to safety. Up at the square, it's share-out time. The ship has given a sack of flour and a supply of potatoes in exchange for island fruits. 32 families collect an equal portion, for on Pitcairn, all take part in the labor and all share in the rewards. At last, the new work on the new post office can proceed. But alas, progress is short-lived. Checking plans, the builders find that some important timbers have not arrived. Well, maybe they'll come on the next ship. Let's be patient. Someday, the island will have a new post office. Now it's school holidays, with plenty of ways of making fun. So the days drift by. The new age has brought new gadgets, new entertainments, new labor-saving devices, but the vast sea will always be there, and Pitcairn will always have its own brand of solitude. There will always be work to do in the gardens. There will always be heavy loads to bear and the need for teamwork and brotherly help, as long as the Pitcairners are on their island. And what of the future? Will this boy one day fly a real aeroplane and leave his island far behind? What are this girl's dreams? Will she bear her children on a faraway strand, and her garden swing be forever deserted? Sometimes the old people wonder. Nobody knows the answer for sure. But this they do know. These are the rocks, and the trails, and the trees that they love. And as long as the ships come, the people will go out to meet them. Travelers from far-off lands will meet this hardy breed. They'll see their courage and simple faith. But to really understand these people, we must understand the tremendous change that was wrought by the book John Adams found. The message of that book has molded their destinies and given an eternal hope to the people of lonely Pitcairn. The influence of the book will never end.
I hope you enjoyed Miracle on Pitcairn. Thanks for your company. I'm Alan Lindsay. See you next time on South Pacific Classics.